So first and foremost, like, thank you, right? Thank you for taking time out of your busy day to join me on a live talk. And I also want to thank Ben, as I always do with these talks. Thank him for putting together just another amazing lineup. I know I was actually on the call before this with Clark. I will have it playing in the background throughout the rest of the week with all the speakers as well. I mean, I know how much he works. He's not going to say it in front of everybody, but I know he works his ass off to put together a jam-packed lineup quarter in and quarter out. So if you're in chat, like make sure to thank him for doing such an amazing job. A little bit about me, right? My past, I'm a former college football coach. I actually coached college football for 5 years before stumbling into the recruitment space. I probably like most people in the recruiting industry didn't even know it existed. I remember at the time I was a graduate assistant at a school up in Minnesota called Winona State. I was just trying to get back to Chicago. I'd been married for a year at that point. I was like, I just want to find a corporate job. And somehow a recruiter came across my resume and she started talking to me and she started explaining like a different job, not at her company. I remember being very confused. Like, wait, I thought I was interviewing for a job at your company. She's like, no, 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 I'm a recruiter. I was like, what do you mean? She's like, I get paid to help people find jobs. And that was my introduction to the recruitment industry. Well, that's kind of cool. I was like, I recruit high school athletes for the past 5 years. Maybe I can sell that skill in an interview. And that's literally all I did from that point forward was interview for a recruitment, actually specifically within like the staffing industry, because I thought that skill was transferable. And ultimately, over the last decade now, I've got 8 years going on my ninth actually at this point within the recruitment space. Took a little bit of time to do the SaaS world just to see what it was like. And I ended up finishing top five at ADP in my first full fiscal there, and ultimately decided to leave and get back into the recruiting world. I just found after I left how much I actually missed it because, as we all know, it's an emotional roller coaster that is this industry. But the relationships you can build and the long-term success you can have, I think, is unmatched in any industry. Specifically, like the SaaS space, you sell something, you move on. The recruitment space, you could work with someone that's a prospect, they become a client, and then hell, they can even become your friends. Like I was on tech spaces, I knew my clients' kids, their names, their birthdays, right? We became friends. I don't think you can get that in really any other industry. Over the past year, actually a year and a half now running a business, but last year alone, I've helped my clients generate over 3.5 million in additional revenue through the coaching and group program that I offer. I myself was top 5% in account breakers. But the key point I always like to demonstrate is I had a terrible start to my career, like awful. I started off as a recruiter in the 180 desk, and the first 6 months, everything went wrong. Candidates backed out, failed background checks, drug screens, withdrawn offers, right? It was so bad. My boss told me like probably 5.5 months, and he said, I've never seen a worse start in my career from a luck perspective. And I remember being like, well, this just isn't for me. And he said, no, it's not anything you're doing. You just had bad luck, which does happen sometimes. Now, there's some tweaks that need to be made, of course, but I was following the process and I was following the systems that were given to me. And when I transferred over to sales, the same thing. For 6 months, I had one rec up on the job board at all times. Hell, my first job order I ever filled or ever got from a client was an intern at a place called Namera here in Buffalo Grove. I still remember that. I mean, my second was a place called Parts Down for a role we don't really even do, but I was desperate and I was out there just trying to make something happen. And I think what ultimately it taught me two things, right? One, as it says on the screen, it's not an overnight success. There is no overnight success in this industry. Yes, some people have fast starts, and kudos to you. I wish I had it. I didn't, but it taught me it's not an overnight success. And having systems, processes, and things in place that you can repeat over and over again is how you go from a zero account manager or zero revenue business owner to get to the point where you're generating millions of dollars in revenue like I was. So today's topic is around planning, right? And this is one of my favorite quotes out there. If you fail to plan, you plan to fail. My college coach told me that all the time. It stuck with me ever since then. I think it was actually taken from Benjamin Franklin. And ultimately, in really any walks of life, right? Whether it's in business development, if you're trying, like everyone, right? New year, new me, a lot of people are back in the gym. You got to have a plan in place because if you don't, you will end up failing because you don't have any targets. You don't have any ways to hold yourself accountable. You can't repeat things over and over again because of a lack of a plan. And that's what I want to talk about today. So we don't need, if you want to drop in the chat, feel free to. I'm actually going to pull up and put it back on my screen. But if any of you, and I know I felt this way many times throughout my career, wake up wondering, hey, what should I be doing from a BD perspective, right? I come in Monday, what should I do? I'm not sure, right? That little voice comes to your mind. Or who should I be reaching out to? I get that question a lot on LinkedIn in my DMs. Hey, what titles? I'm not sure I should be reaching out to. What accounts should I be targeting, right? And how am I going to hit my goals? Ultimately, that's the last one. Like, how am I going to hit my goals is a scary, scary question to ask yourself. And if you're feeling any of these things, this is what today's topic, the goal is to help you feel better about these questions and have answers to these questions the next time they creep into your head and you get those like Sunday scary, so to speak. So who's your ideal customer? We'll start there, right? If you have a plane leaving from LA to New York, I always tell this story. A plane leaving from LA to New York, if it's 1 degree off, it'll end up 60 miles off course. And that's just 1 degree, right? The same applies for business development. If you're just a little bit off, you're going to miss the mark. And that's why you constantly need to be reevaluating who is your ICP. I was on a call with a business owner last month and we were asking her, hey, who's your ICP? What about your territory plan? Do you have those things in place? She's like, yes, we do. I'm like, awesome, great start. When's the last time you reevaluate? She's like, probably about 16 to 18 months ago. Like, okay, thank you for being honest. Do we think things have changed from a year and a half ago? The answer obviously is yes, right? And things are going to change now over the next 6 months. It's constantly changing. The market, the environment, the economy, it's always having factors that play a role in the recruitment space. And if we're not constantly reevaluating who my ICP is, we can be like that plane going from LA to New York, and we're going to miss our target, right? Another question to ask yourself is, how can I help those individuals? Right? If I've got the titles I'm targeting, I know I skipped that bullet point, but let's just say my niche, and I'm hypothetically this out. If my niche is 50 to 200 employees within the IT space, that's my company ICP. Now, within there, who do I serve? And I say serve because I do think in sales, you are serving, right, your customers and you're at service with your candidates. You're trying to help them out. With those titles, who are we targeting? Is it the director of IT? Is it the VP of IT? Is it the CEO? Is it HR, right? We need to know. And I think the more, honestly, the more entry points we have within the account, the better off you're going to be long term. If you've only got one place you're calling or one title you're calling on per account, you've only got one swing at the plate. If I've got 5, 6, 7, 8 different titles that I'm going to be targeting and calling on, that gives me more at bats at the plate, which means more opportunity, which means I'm more likely not going to actually get a hit out of that. And if you can't tell by this point 10 minutes into it, I'm a big story slash metaphor guy. Obviously, sports too. It's a little bit of baseball metaphor for you as well. I do think baseball is a great parallel for being in sales because the world's greatest hitters in the Hall of Fame we're talking about failed 70% of the time at the plate. Hell, in sales, if I were successful 30% of the time in my outreach, I would be ecstatic because that would be beyond, it'd be beyond world class. And I think remembering some of that stuff can help you when you're having those like bad days. Next bullet point. What are the common challenges for each vertical you support, right? And think beyond just the hiring part of your job, right? You don't just hire and fill roles. You are an employment expert. And also think about the downstream effects that occur when you have the right people in the right seats, right? Going back to the football world, common saying is you got to get the right people on the bus. The same applies when you're trying to build a company, and the same applies when you're a recruitment partner to your clients. Ultimately, your goal is to get the right people in the right seats. They'll have the right impact on the company to get them to where they want to go. Whether that's to drive revenue, whether it's to grow market share, whether it's just to give the director peace of mind knowing that his team is now fully staffed and they'll actually be able to hit their KPI. So we got to think beyond just hiring. We got to think, what are their business challenges? What are the things ultimately that like keep them up at night? If we start viewing our prospects through that lens, we can then create relevant messaging via cold calls, via our content, if we post on LinkedIn, to emails that'll actually hit home with them. Instead of sending outreach saying, hey, I do this, I fill these roles, this is my company. That's all I. It's not relevant to them. That doesn't keep them up at night. But if I'm reaching out saying, hey, I know with an open software engineer position, projects get delayed by 8 weeks, which leads to X, Y, and Z. Are you experiencing something similar? That is what's keeping that individual up at night. So I'm moving beyond just hiring. I'm moving into what are the business challenges and what are the things that keep them up at night that I can then solve said problems. If you're unsure who your ICP is, take a screenshot of this. But I have a Notion document that keeps track of all this stuff. I was always taught to have, and we'll get into this here in a minute, your target accounts. Top 50 is where I usually start with. Sometimes that number can grow depending on the points of contact and really just kind of your general goals. But having something as simple as this and reevaluating quarter to quarter can, again, going back to that metaphor of the LA to New York, can help you ensure you continue to be on target. Because look, through the course of a quarter, 6 months, hell, even a year, if you start going off a little bit, if you're self-evaluating, you can course correct. If that plane halfway through, if it's over my state of Illinois, right in Chicago, if they're off a degree, they'll still land in New York if they realize that. and readjust their course accordingly. And that's why I think having something like this template where you can organize your thoughts and really fill this all out, you can then say, okay, here's my ICP. And then I look at, and we'll get into this in a minute, I can look at my territory plan and say, are the accounts that are in my territory plan reflective of who my ICP is? Do they align? If the answer is no, two things need to change, or really one thing needs to change out of those two. Either your ICP needs to change because it doesn't fit your target list, and maybe if you're having a ton of success with a current client base or prospect base, you need to reevaluate your ICP, or it might say, hey, my target list is just bad. It doesn't align with my ICP. I need to reevaluate that. We're going to cover that here in the slides moving forward. Your ideal customer profile, again, going back to this, right? I think a lot of, and I actually put up a post last week about this, and it did very well on LinkedIn from the spray and pray perspective. I do think a lot of firms, or going, at least I hope I should say, are going to abandon the spray and pray method. The, hey, we're just going to pick up the phone and call them every 3 weeks, or hey, we're just going to blast off 1,000 NPCs and hope someone bites, right? That works pretty well, like it was in 21 and 22 when it was a candidate-driven market and companies were starved for talent. They would take anyone outreaching saying, hey, we've got someone available. Like, yes, please, I'll talk to you. That doesn't work when it's an employer-driven market, when you actually have to be consultative when it comes to your selling style. And if you're doing this spray and pray, generic messaging, you're not going to get prospects that'll listen. They're just going to ignore it because you sound like everyone else. And if you sound like everyone else, why would I give you the time of day? Why would I give you time out of my busy schedule to meet with you if you sound like every other person that's in my inbox or every other person that's calling me up on the phone? It doesn't make sense. Another key point, right, within the ICP space is once you do this exercise, you may more likely not find yourself coming across a large number of potential prospects. In theory, it sounds great. I, for one, believe, though, that is fool's gold because if you have so many prospects to go after, you can't do a correct BD approach. You can't have a consultative approach to them with a sheer number of people. You're going to have to dilute your messaging. It can't be relevant. And ultimately, you're not going to stand out because, and I'll actually show this here in the next slide here, the Pareto principle. Let's just say you have an ICP figured out. We look at our territory plan. We'll use myself. If I'm in Chicago, I would say I'm going to target life sciences, which is one of my backgrounds that I sold. There's med device, food and beverage, and pharma. Within that, there's probably, I mean, honestly, in Chicago, there's 400, 500 different companies that could fit within that general ICP. I'm going to want to bring that down because as the Pareto principle says, and it's been shown to be part of every part of sales, every part of organizations, where 80% of your results come from 20% of your efforts. And if I'm taking that 400 person or 400 account list and saying, I'm going to apply the Pareto principle, give me my top 20%, that you end up with that 40 to 50 target accounts that you're going to be going after quarter over quarter, potentially year over year, depending on the upside and kind of what your long-term goals are as well. Because if you do that and you get the right customers signed up with you, you can build millions of dollars. You don't need 100 customers to get to $1 million. Hell, you only need probably 5 to maybe 7 customers to build $1 million, depending on what your service offering is, whether it's contract or direct hire. But if you really think about it, if you're selling DH and most of your average placement fee is 20K, I need to make through the course of the year 25 placements. If I've got 5 clients who give me 5 placements a year, I just hit my goal. I just made $500,000 in revenue just off of that alone. And if you go back to the top 50, which we're going to cover in a second, 5 new clients is only 10% of my targeted list. As you can see, it's all falling under that 20%, right? That Pareto principle I'm talking about. So how's your territory broken down? We're kind of getting to the teaching portion of today's talk, right? Kind of talked about why and the ICP and how I think it's important, but let's go into how we break things down and why this picture is actually up on your screen in the first place. So I believe the territory plan, ABCs, right? And we're going to go into account focus doc. All of that is the foundation of what you want to build your mansion on. Yes, you can build a mansion quickly, but if you do it on an unstable foundation, it's going to collapse inevitably, right? You need to have a rock solid foundation if you want to build something big on top of that. And that's why I use this picture as an illustration. You got to get that in place first before you can then build on the second, third levels, the pool, everything else that comes fun with it. You have that rock solid foundation. The key, though, or the one caveat to this is this part of the job, and I make no, I don't hide this fact with anyone I talk to. This is what I would consider the boring basics of the job. It can feel slow, right? Figuring out who my top 50 are, doing proper research, understanding do they fit my ICP. But if I do it the right way, I'm slowing down today so I can speed up tomorrow. And I think that's so important. It takes a lot of hard work to do this, but when done properly, you can then speed up and then you can build that mansion I'm talking about. Helps you prepare you to win. I use this example all the time. I actually just recently came across this clip the other day, probably because Bill Belichick went to UNC. But I was a Patriots fan when they played the Seahawks years ago in the Super Bowl. There was the Malcolm Butler interception. And there's a very cool video out there. It's about 9 minutes if you want to look it up, talking about how the Patriots actually ran that exact play in practice, and Malcolm Butler actually screwed up on that play. It's supposed to, it was a, I'm not going to, I guess I am getting technical. There's a slant. He went on the high side and ended up scoring in practice. And they were able to coach up Butler on if he were to see that again, the proper way he should play that route combination. And as we know, the Patriots ended up picking off the ball at the 2-yard line. They ended up winning the Super Bowl, and it all became from the preparation that they did to win. Tying that back into sales and the territory plan, that is your preparation. This is the stuff that'll get in place to help you win, not just today, but for quarters from now and years from now as well. ABC ranking, I'll cover this here in a few slides, but just to give a brief thing, I'm a big believer of looking at accounts and saying, what is my revenue projection? If I'm targeting going back to that 50 to 200 person company, if I'm reaching out to a company and I see on LinkedIn, right, they've reduced headcount, maybe they've made 1 or 2 hires over the last couple of years, the upside isn't there, right? It'd probably more likely not be what I would consider a C account. I'm not going to get a ton of revenue versus another company might be hiring 20 software engineers. And I've seen it happen quarter over quarter, year over year, whatever it is. That would be an A account. And having a healthy mix of those is going to be so important, which we'll cover here in the next slide or two. This is what a territory plan. This is a Notion document I put together as well to like keep track of stuff. But this is where, and LinkedIn Sales Nav is great. I use that as well. But I do believe you should have like an offline territory plan, not just saved on LinkedIn or not just saved in your CRM, right? We're talking, I have an Excel doc of the exact same thing too. But like we're talking something I can just pull up anywhere in the world and look at it. Because if I have this overview, and I'll actually cover the rankings right here. If I have this overview and I'm looking at my territory plan and it's filled with nothing but A accounts, right? High upside, it may sound great in theory, but the problem is A accounts typically, more often than not, they take more time to get into, right? There might be more red tape to cut through. There might be more decision makers that are involved in the process. It could be a slower sales cycle. So ultimately, yeah, Vandalay Industries forever put that in. Thank you for noticing. Ultimately, I need to have a healthy mix because I need to pay the bills today, right? That's where the B's and C's can come in place. And going back to like a general metaphor, I always tell people, think of this, right? Your territory plan, like a jar, and next to it, you've got rocks, gravel, and sand. If I were to ask you to fill the jar up, if you did nothing but rocks, you'd fill it up pretty quickly, but ultimately there are a ton of cracks in there, right? It's not completely filled to the brim. What you need is a combination of all of those. The rocks, they might be bigger, they're harder to move, they take up more space, but your C's, which is the sand in this case, they're the ones that fill in the cracks, right? Your C accounts are the ones where you're saying, look, I want to hit my goal for the quarter or my goal for the year, and you're calling up maybe a 50-person company that hires a couple times a year, and they're the ones that say, yeah, actually, we're in need. Like, let's get a contract in place in the next couple of days, right? Not a lot of red tape, quick to get in, upside's limited, but you need that at times to hit your goals and also pay the bills. Also, as people are dropping stuff in the chat too, like I I do like group teachings. I like it when people are interactive. So like if you want to just cut me off, please feel free. I know I'm supposed to just talk at you. I don't love doing that. So like feel free to ask questions. I'll try to answer them in the middle of like the Vandalay Industries. Yes, that was just I'm a big Seinfeld fan. So I actually started rewatching it again the start of the new year when I'm on like the treadmill. So yes, thank you for pointing that out. Going back to ABCs, right? This is like a simple way, like take a screenshot of this, simple way to calculate, hey, is it an A account to me, a B account to me, or C account to me? And a lot of it depends on like well, what your revenue goal is. In this case, I did $500,000. If I'm looking at an A account, your A account's roughly, right? You want it to be between 10 and 30% of your total goal. And I say 30% is kind of like a word of caution. I'm not saying like, hey, if they get above 30%, you should drop them. No, hey, kudos to you for doing a great job, right? You're getting a ton of business from one account. But on the flip side, be very cautious because if one account is bringing in 20, 30, 35% of your revenue, it takes one phone call for them to disappear. I know from experience. I had a company here in Chicago, it's called Fresenius Kabi. They were a $500,000 account year in and year out. Like I knew we were getting $500,000 basically every year from them. And on Valentine's Day, they called me up and said, "Hey, we just lost our biggest customer, and everyone that's on contract has to go tonight." And it went from projected $500,000 to $0 with one phone call. And it stung. It stung a ton, but it taught me, hey, when a company or client gets that high in revenue, you need to make sure you're always prospecting because you never know they're going to disappear. But going back to the calculation, right? You got your A, B's, and C's, 10% to about 30% for A's. If we're doing just quick math, and as you see with the formula here, right? You take your number of openings that you plus your fill rate. This is more for the contingent. If you're doing retain, you expect obviously 100% in this case. But if we've got 10 openings and we're saying, hey, we fill about 30% of the time, each one's worth 20K, it's a 60K revenue account, right? That's just ballpark math. Obviously, things change, right? Fees can go higher, lower, but like we're just trying to get a general idea of where do they fit within my territory plan? Are they in A, B, and C? And in this case, for this example, being at 60K, they would then fall between the 50 and 150. I'd call it an A account. If I did the same thing with a company that only had 5 openings and I'm only filling 30%, right? We're talking at that point, my math's not great. So 1.5 fills for that. At 20K, we're about 30K. So in that case, it would fall in my B's accounts, right? And I keep doing the same thing to the point where I look at my territory plan and say, hey, I have a healthy mix. Ideally, you want about 80% of A's and B's, and then 20% of your accounts to be those C's, those quick hitters, those easy wins, so to speak. This does, though, as you see the bottom bullet point, changes from year to year because as your revenue goal grows, what once was an A account may no longer be an A account because now you're going for $1 million. And an example I gave, 60K would not be 10%, wouldn't hit that 10% threshold because now an A account's 100K and up, which then pushes yourself to find bigger and bigger whales. And that's why you're constantly going back to that charting the course from the plane. You're constantly reevaluating your territory plan based on what your goals are. Because if you plan to fail, you fail. If you fail to plan, you plan to fail. All right, my mouse died. Give me 1 second. All right, quick little recap. Right, that's a bad Valentine's Day. Yeah, it was awful. I still remember that. So luckily, my wife had a glass of wine waiting for me when I was done making all those calls. So quick recap, right? We've got a Notion doc, Excel doc, some way, right, where we've got our top, and I say 25, next 25, that was the lingo I was taught, top 50 accounts figured out. Again, it is fluid. It's constantly evaluating. We're constantly reevaluating and changing. And we're looking at it really quarter over quarter is the best way, I think. You don't need to do it week over week. I think that'd be overkill. But every quarter, you should be looking at your territory plan and saying, hey, does it fit my ICP? Are the accounts I'm still targeting worth my time? Those are 2 really important questions you need to ask yourself. And if you know the answers to those, it means you probably need more research. Or if the answer is no, they don't, get them out. They shouldn't be on your territory plan, right? Be quick to inspect and quick to reject. If they don't work for you, get them out and find someone who does. Now we're going to begin setting specific account goals. This is where we call what I was taught using an account focus doc. I'll show you what that looks like here. So going back to, we're doing this quarterly. We've got a territory plan within that, within each account, again, here, right on the right-hand side, within each account, I'm going to have very specific goals of what I want to accomplish that quarter. Because if we're going after whales, right, and really it doesn't matter, even if we're going after C's, and I'll cover this in a few more slides too, but like you're not going to get a contract on the first call. You're not going to get a contract on the first discovery. It may take multiple meetings. It could take 10, 20, 30, 50 meetings, depending on the account size. You might have to meet so many stakeholders to get things in place. And if you're looking at thinking, well, either get a contract in place or it wasn't worthwhile, like that is a binary mindset and you're going to drive yourself insane. But if you're looking at with like this, with an account focus doc and saying, hey, I want to get out to lunch with so-and-so, I want to meet with so-and-so, I want to find 5 new leads and input them into my CRM, right? Those are little goals we can keep checking off and we're moving the ball forward, right? We're getting closer to breaking in the account or we're getting closer to growing revenue. It could already be an active client, right? I break it down to clients, targets, and then reactivates, which if anyone's wondering what that means, it's any place you've had a contract in place that you haven't billed within the last year. Because a lot of people, and if you're working for an organization, especially the bigger firms, you'd be shocked at the number of evergreen contracts that exist with clients that haven't been active in over a year. Those are some of the easiest people to go back to and say, oh, we have a contract in place. Yeah, we can work on these roles immediately. Like that'd be one of the first places I was going to if I'm an individual contributor working for a large organization. I'd be going to Reactivates. If you're starting out brand new, guess what? Your account focus doc is gonna be nothing but targets, and that's okay because over time, some of those targets can move into clients, right? And over the years, some of those targets or clients may move to Reactivates, but it's constantly reevaluating your account focus doc. When it comes to creating the goals themselves, a lot of us probably have heard this acronym because we teach candidates the same thing when giving interview answers, right? SMART goals: specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and then time bound. It's naturally time bound because this should be done quarterly. It is a quarter account focused document. So we're trying to get everything accomplished by the end of said quarter. And being that we are just about 2.5 weeks into the quarter, perfect time to do it now. This is, again, going back to a few slides. This is one of those boring basics that'll be a little bit of slowing down, so to speak, but it'll help you speed up. And I think one of the best ways to use this document, beyond just holding yourself accountable with the weekly check-ins, is you have a meeting or you have a candidate call scheduled or you have an internal meeting scheduled, something, right? And it gets canceled last minute. And you're sitting there going, well, that just messed up my plan. What should I be doing? First place you should turn to is this. Because if you set these goals out at the beginning of the quarter, you're saying these are important to me. I have free time I didn't expect. Let me go revisit this and see what items I can check off the box. I tell people, hey, aim for 70%. If you're completing 90% of your quarter goals, hell, even 100% if you somehow got to there, like it may feel great. I'd be the first one to push back and say your goals are too low, right? You set the bar too low for yourself. You got to raise it higher. Now, on the flip side, if you're finishing around 40%, you need to have question yourself, hey, am I setting it too high? Are they not realistic goals, right? If I said today, like, hey, break into Coca-Cola and start staffing for their executive leadership team, yeah, chances are you're not going to get that done this quarter, right? It's probably going to take you some time. So you can't really set the bar that high. We're going to end up falling flat on your face. You need to have like a general, I guess, like a healthy mix when it comes to like some stretch goals and realistic goals. But I tell people, hey, aim for around 70. If you get to 80%, that's great, right? And there's probably, I would consider the sweet spot. Again, healthy mix of clients, targets, reactivates if it's possible. If it's just targets, hey, don't worry about it. We all start with just targets anyways when you do this. Which really we're trying to do quarter to quarter is just move one or two accounts over into the client side of the document. Peer accountability. I said weekly check-ins. I think this is one of the best ways though, is to have someone just hold you accountable. Like if you're working at a company, share it with each other. If you got a boss that's willing to hold you accountable to do it as well. If you got buddies on LinkedIn, do it that way too. But just having peer accountability, I think, is a great way to ensure you're trying to accomplish the goals you set for yourself. Again, you're not going to get it all done, and that's okay. I don't want anyone feeling like they're leaving this call thinking like, I got to get, no, you don't have to get it all done. You just want to set yourself goals so that way you can celebrate some of the small wins you're making along the journey that it is of breaking into new accounts. Because it really is a journey to break into a new account. It takes time, effort, sweat, tears, everything else that everyone says. But by having these little check the boxes, small wins, you start building a momentum, you build that confidence, and really just keep yourself sane as well. So quick recap, kind of where we're at right now. We've created our ICP. We've identified accounts that fit the ICP. We're focusing on a top 50, right? Roughly. And again, depending on your goals and stuff, this number can change, but like, let's just start with top 50 because we want to figure out, hey, what's the fastest time to ROI for every minute I spend on this account? Is it worthwhile or not? If the answer is yes, we keep spending. If the answer is no, find someone else. And then we've created an account focus with account focused doc with very specific goals. So now, how the hell do we turn these goals into accomplishments, right? This is one of my favorite slides to pull up. Because we've got all the planning done, right? It's all mapped out. What do we do from here? Because that's a question I usually get after showing these slides. So yeah, on the left, we built the foundation, rock solid, time to build the mansion, right? This is where I think the outbound process comes into play. And I'm not going to get in like I'm going to show a couple examples around sequences. I'm going to give kind of like best practices, but outbound process, it's different from business to business, vertical to vertical, contingent versus retain, right? The point though is just having some sort of outbound process in place is key to long-term success. So quick little eval, right? If you're looking at your 2024 outbound process, you need to ask yourself, hey, what channels have I tried? Email, cold calling, right? In-person drops. If you are local to your market, that's a quick way to stand out. candidate 360 calls. If you're calling on directors, high level people, I was actually on Clark's Talk Force. I think someone asked questions like, how do you turn candidates into clients? He said it best: do a great job when they're candidates, right? Help them out every way you can because they will become clients down the road. Creative campaigns. I was taught this actually during my ADP days and carried it over from there. Having creative campaigns from like a mailers, and I'm talking like old school mailers centered around like March Madness or St. Patty's Day, or really like general themes and shared events most people are going to be talking about throughout the course of the year, right? 4th of July, Halloween. If you can do some fun creative campaign outreach around that, I think it goes a long, long way to help you stand out. I said it a little bit ago, but outbound should not be, you should not approach outbound with a binary mindset. And by that, I mean, do not think, did I set a meeting or not? Did I either succeed or fail? Because that's binary. It's zeros or ones in that case. If you're reaching out to somebody and you find out they're not willing to meet with you, but they're working with other recruitment partners, that's a win. As far as I'm concerned, I'd probably actually move that almost into the big win category. Because now I know an organization already sees value in working with a recruitment partner. And that company, maybe I wasn't so sure if they should be in my territory plan or not. Now they became more valuable to me because I've learned a little bit more about that. Or maybe I got on a call with the prospect or sent them an email and they said, hey, no, not right now, but check back in February. Like, yeah, we get pushed off like that all the time. But guess what? They responded. That's a win. They didn't just delete your email, didn't just end up in your spam. Those are like small wins. It's not that binary mindset. You're taking small wins, small little steps to eventually get into the big wins, which is getting contracts in place and making placements. Ask yourself in your outbound process, hey, what are you trying to achieve with every outbound step you take whenever you reach out to your prospects? Are you looking to educate them? Are you trying to set meetings? Are you trying to build relationships? Are you trying to just gather information? Because there are a number of ways you can do outbound. It doesn't just have to be about setting meetings. Hell, you can be calling clients and just being like, hey, how was your cruise, right? We just were over the holidays. How was the cruise, right? We're not even trying to set a meeting. We're just trying to build that relationship. We're trying to do maybe a little bit of intel gathering. Hey, we know that on the cruise. I know you guys are formalizing budgets right now. Any department's hiring, right? Oh, we're doing this, that, and there. Cool, boom. I just learned a ton of information. Small one in my book. Got off the phone. I didn't set the meeting. That's okay. I learned a bunch. Huge win as far as I'm concerned. But I think going and just like ask yourself, hey, what am I trying to accomplish with each outreach is important. So cadences, this is where like again, I'm not going to spend a ton of time on like the different ones. I actually just grabbed some from some people on like LinkedIn, just some other ones I was taught as well. But I think best practices in general, a multi-touch channel approach is a must-have. You can't just rely on one channel. I talk to people like, oh, we just sent out a bunch of emails. Like, cool. What if your prospects actually pick up the phone? What if they use LinkedIn? What if they will open up their mail, right? Again, old school mail, you send a handwritten note, right? Having multiple channels allows you to meet your prospects where they want to be met at. It's the same with like candidates, right? We've all had it. You're trying to find candidates to get a hold of. You try LinkedIn a bunch of times, can't get a hold of them. You shoot them one email, they respond back within 5 minutes. Same applies for your prospects. You have to have a multi-channel approach because ultimately we need to figure out what channel they're going to respond in. And then once we do, we can then probably, not even probably, we can start doubling down on that channel with that particular prospect. In creating a sequence, I'm a big believer in this. I think it should be at least 9 touches. There's been plenty of studies done. Salesforce does it every year. They release a report. I don't think it's been released yet this year, but they do all these studies around the number of touches it takes to get a meeting. And over the last couple of years, it's been 8. The number slowly is creeping up, unfortunately, but studies have shown it takes at least 8 touches in order to get in front of a prospect slash get the meeting, which is kind of a lot, you'd think. But on the flip side, and this is probably the sad part of the study they always release, most sales reps give up by the 4th touch. Actually, a large majority give up after the first or second. So in those times you're like trying to create your outreach, you're saying like, oh, do I really want to reach out to him? If you just say, hey, look, I'm going to reach out to him 9 times over the course of 5 weeks, whatever it is, right? Again, I'm not going to tell you exactly how to build your cadences, but if you're just saying that, that alone will separate you from your competition because we know like 99% of people will stop by the 4th touch. And as you know from prospects, most of them will say like criticism of recruitment people is they only reach out and have job orders. They only reach out every once in a while. They reach out like once a quarter, then they disappear. Like that that doesn't get you anywhere. This, though, having a plan like this in place will help you stand out from the crowd, help you stay front of mind as well, and help you ultimately get the business. So again, just like general, like looking at this, right? I grabbed this one I like because email, LinkedIn, phone, right? Multi-channels in here. They're coming at it from three different angles, trying to get in touch with these individuals. We pop that open too. I saw someone say, "Oh, we'll have in-person drops," right? So in-person drops are like how you would do it. I think one of the best ways is around creative campaigns. So I think I told this story last year too. St. Patty's Day, I would walk into places holding a giant leprechaun, and I'd walk up to like the front desk and say like, "Hey, I hope the Irish are shining on me today. I've been trying to hold to get so and so. Have had no luck. Tell them I'm willing to give them a pot of gold if they give me some of their time." Right? Something fun like that, I think, is one of the best ways to going about doing like in-person drops because one, it's disarming. Two, for me, it's natural. Like I'm naturally just kind of like a kind of like a joking guy, if I'm just being honest. So I like to have fun with some of my cold outreach stuff. And three, I don't think most people do it. So that makes me look different. It also makes you look human too. I think a lot of people think us in the recruitment space, at least on the prospect side, they think we're like robots, right? We're just out there on the phone, like we don't care about anything, just making money. It's like, no, we're out there like trying to make an impact on your life, candidates' lives. Yes, ultimately it does impact my life for the better as well, but like I'm more than just someone who's a sales robot trying to generate revenue. Going back to this one, I don't want to read through this one like bullet by bullet, and I do want to save time for questions at the end because I realize we're 40 minutes in already. But just like I would look at this as one of the more least labor intensive outreach strategies, as you can see, spread over 6 months. This might be something you'd use on an account. You're like, I'm not quite sure if they're top 50 worthy, but I want to like stay kind of front of mind in case something happens, right? Maybe you're targeting startups and they're in like the pre-funding rounds. You're like, there's too early for me, but I want to get in front of them now because once they get to like Series A level, I'm going to be the person that's going to help them out. The Ugogi sequence is this was taken from this guy's name Sam Nelson. You can see on there. He made it popular back in 2018. He actually rolled this out. I remember getting this from like LinkedIn when he showed it. But this is like extremely aggressive. As you can see on there, the number of touches on there is a little bit intense. I'm not the biggest fan of breakup emails just because if the account's worth my time, I'm going to revisit the account. I might after this, I mean not might. I definitely would give the prospect a break if I were to run through a sequence like this. I would say like, look, give them 4, 5, 6 weeks of a break after trying to sprint through this. But I probably wouldn't send the breakup of like, hey, if I don't hear back from you, not gonna hear from me. Like that's just like I don't like it. Like, and again, it's my own personal bias. I think it's silly. I don't think it really hits home with prospects. It sounds almost to me slightly desperate as well. So I'd avoid something like a breakup email. But I just want to give an example of like an aggressive one. And this last one's the most aggressive one, the triple tap. This would be something where like when I would use this would be something like, hey, I'm not quite sure, or actually, yeah, two things. But hey, I'm not quite sure if they're worth my time or not. I'm willing to just like go through a full sprint right now to see what information I can gather and see if they're worthwhile. The other one might be, hey, I just found out, going back to that Series A example, right? I just found out they got a bunch of funding. They're about to open up a ton of roles. I can't just sit around waiting, right? I got to take action. I got to be a little bit more aggressive than I normally would. Maybe do something like this. Again, this is very aggressive. Most people aren't comfortable doing this, and that's okay. But there are going to be times in the recruitment game where you're going to have to be aggressive because if there's a major hiring spree or if you're doing staffing in particular, right? If they've got projects coming up, we're going to bring on a bunch of contractors. That opportunity is now. There's a finite window where you can make something happen. You can't afford to wait 3 months from now to get the meeting. You got to get it done in the next 3 weeks. Otherwise, the project's gone, and now you have to wait a full year for it to come around. Happens a lot within the healthcare space with like insurance, and there's an uptick usually in the fall/winter when it comes to like hospital visits. So you see like a uptick of MAs, PSRs, things of that nature. But the point is like I would only use this in like those two instances. So creating a sequence from scratch can be hard. I'll just do the first one in a minute. So I want to give you a couple examples just to like get the idea bank or ideas going through the mind. But when you're creating it, I would say just break it down into like, hey, number of calls, emails, social outreach, and creative, right? Get like two, even if you did two touches from each one of those, you're at 8. Throw another one or two in a different bucket, and just like that, you're at 10. Put it all together, and now you've got yourself your own unique sequence that you can follow and over again. And the reason why I do think having something like this in place is going back to that quote, right? If you fail to plan, you plan to fail. is once you have something like a sequence, you can kind of repeat, you can start moving faster, first off. Secondly, you can start seeing where prospects fall off, right? Where they start saying, hey, no thanks, right? Or you're getting low response rates on email versus other emails. Then we can start, the data starts telling you a story. And it tells you, hey, this message resonates, this one doesn't. Get rid of this message, double down on this one, expand on this one, right? And it starts just giving you a window of into your own process and how you can improve upon it. Once you put it back together too, I just kind of give this general, hey, I think 2 touches in a row in the same channel is probably a good starting point. So if I made 2 phone calls today, tomorrow, maybe on Thursday, I'm shooting an email, on Friday, a LinkedIn message, Monday, I'm sending a creative campaign, something like that. But if you just keep calling or keep emailing, again, we're trying to find out where the prospects want to be met at. And if I just keep repeating the same channel and over again with no response, I'm not really getting anywhere. So closing thoughts, just in general around like sales, territory planning, putting together account focus doc, outreach. We covered a lot in the 45 minutes I've been talking at this point. I hinted at it, but I cannot stress this enough. Small wins are important, right? Progress is life's greatest motivator. I stole that quote from a book I read. I loved it because it is so true. If you're going into 2025 and you're saying, Keely, I want to sign 10 new clients, I would say, awesome. How are we going to do that? Break it down for me step by step. If the answer is I'm not sure, I'm going to say, great, you're setting yourself up for failure because we're not going to see the small wins along the way. If we get to the end of this quarter and you signed one client, you're sitting there going, oh my God, I only signed one client. I have 9 more clients to set over the next 3 quarters. I would say, hey, let's take a look though what you actually accomplished. Let's look a little bit deeper. Let's look at those small wins. Yes, you want to break it into 10 accounts. You only got into one, but the other 9, you had discovery meetings at 7 of them. You are in contract trades with 2 others. You've got a rec up on the board that hasn't been filled with another, right? Like those are the small wins that are important. And if you stack enough of those small wins, over time, you're going to get a big win, which is what we're looking for, right? We want the big wins, but you can't get there without stacking the small wins. And another quote I stole, right? A goal without a plan is a dream, right? I think I stole that from Herm Edwards, football coach. But if you're sitting there dreaming of getting to 10 broken accounts or 500,000 in revenue, million, 2 million, whatever it is, if you don't have a plan in place, you're just dreaming. But if you got the plan in place, you've got a goal in place, you've got something that you can take action upon and actually create, again, forward momentum. So I see a couple QAs. We'll get to QA here in a second. I'll stop sharing my screen in a minute, but just a little plug about myself because I did say I'd connect with everybody. It might be, I actually realize it'd probably be easier if everyone just connects with me. This is my LinkedIn. Just type in Keely Flood. I post daily on LinkedIn. You'll literally see me every single day. I think I post 7:14 my time just because I stole it from some creator that said it's a good time to post. But every day at 7:14, I'm posting about selling, putting together processes that can help you win new clients and grow revenue within the recruitment space. I put it out for my audience on LinkedIn, so I thought it would be fair to offer it in here too. But that QR code right there, and I'll drop it once I stop sharing my screen, the link as well. But Ben was kind enough, and I think the sponsor as well, to give me 3 VIP tickets. I'm giving those all the way. So you can submit yourself into like a raffle. There's a little form to fill out. And by the end of the day, I'm just going to put in a raffle and 3 lucky winners will get VIP tickets, which means you get replays to all of this. So kind of a nice little plug for this the event. Yeah, VIP Ben. And then last little few plugs about me, like again, who I help, right? I'm not going to read all these off, but if any of these bullet points resonate with you, this is where I can be of help, right? If you've had success growing your business, but you don't know how to get those good clients, right? A lot of people say, hey, I got to a business relying on my referral network, which is great. If you're early on stages and I tell people if they come to me and say, hey, I need help, like, cool, did you use everyone in your network? Have you reached out to all your referrals? They're like, no. I'm like, great, do that first and then come back to me second because you shouldn't be paying to work with me until you've done that first. Once that's tapped out and you feel like you want to grow more beyond that stage, that's when you come to someone like me or any other coaches that are going to be on these talks throughout the week because I feel like that's the value add we bring. If you've got a strong referral network, do not pay a coach, do not join a course, use those individuals first, then come to someone like us second. Other bullet points, right? You followed common voice, you're not seeing success, you're frustrated by the industry, and you start to believe you might not be the right fit. Come talk to me. In this case, I might tell you it's a good idea to switch. I left. I always leave that bullet point at the end because I did leave the industry. I thought it was time for me to get out. I was like, this recruiting thing, I was burnt out. So many problems going wrong within the space, outside the space, just in general. I'm like, let's just go do the SaaS thing. It'll be so much easier. And I did it, and I was like, this sucks. Like, I'll be honest, I just didn't like it. I was like, I don't like this whole like sign, get a contract, and move on. I miss the recruitment space, and ultimately that's why I came back. And then ways that can help: one-on-one coaching, a group cohort I do. We just launched last week. Yeah, that was just the introductory meeting. So we just got that going. And then a free newsletter, which if you go to LinkedIn, if you go on my website, right, you can sign up there. I send out a free newsletter every week where within 3 minutes or less, I'll give you one process that can help you win new clients and grow your revenue. And there's what other people have said about working with me. So I've had the fortunate Yeah, I mean, really, I've been fortunate to work with a variety of people from a variety of different industries: blockchain, construction, IT. I mean, all walks of the recruitment space. And it's been a blast the last year and a half because I get to combine my coaching and my sales together to help people achieve the goals that they would have set forth for themselves. I get to play a small part in that as well. But I will stop sharing